The stars had never looked so peaceful. And yet behind that quiet light, every intelligent being in the galaxy carried the same unspoken fear. The fear of the line. It was invisible. No walls, no warning signs, no satellites flashing, "Keep out." Still, everyone knew where it was. Every map showed it in the same way. A thin gray border surrounding the region humans called home. The space beyond belonged to no one else. No alien government dared to draw their roots too close. No trading ship drifted near by accident. The line marked the end of curiosity. For generations, newcomers to the galaxy's political stage would eventually ask the same question. They would be sitting inside the shining halls of the Galactic Council, staring at the star charts, and someone would point at the silent region in the middle. "Who lives there?" they would ask. "Why is no one allowed to pass?" The answer was always the same: silence. Not a pause to think, not an attempt to explain. Just silence. The oldest members of the council would lower their eyes, and the meeting would move on as if nothing had been asked. That silence said everything. Long ago, before the galaxy learned to fear humans, they were simply newcomers. Ambitious explorers from a small blue planet orbiting an average star. They entered space later than everyone else. By the time their first ships appeared on the outer trade routes, most civilizations already had vast empires and advanced fleets. Humans arrived with outdated drives and simple communication codes, eager to learn, to trade, to join the larger community. At first, they were ignored. Their technology was primitive, their ships slow. The galaxy saw them as harmless dreamers. Interesting, maybe, but not important. Yet there was something about humans that unsettled even the most advanced races. They learned too fast. Within a century, they were building ships that could match the speed of those who had ruled the stars for thousands of years. Within 2 centuries, they had colonized hundreds of worlds, spreading far beyond what anyone thought possible. And through it all, they remained quiet about how they did it. They never shared their research openly, never asked for help, and never bragged. They just kept expanding, steady, silent, unstoppable. Then something changed. The first hint came from the Tashari, a curious species known for sending probes into every corner of the galaxy. One of their fleets had been sent to study a new region of space near the Sol sector, human territory. The humans didn't respond to their greetings, but that was not unusual. Many species ignored foreign signals at first contact. The Tashari ships crossed the border without permission. They were never seen again. Weeks later, fragments of those ships drifted back across the border, metal torn apart as if by invisible hands. Every data core was wiped clean. No signs of battle, no life signs, not even the smallest trace of what had happened, just silence. When the Tashari demanded an explanation, humanity said nothing. No apology, no threat, no acknowledgement. They simply sent one short transmission: "Do not cross the line." After that, the galaxy began to whisper. At first, many didn't believe it. Stories of haunted space had always existed. Some thought it was a technical failure. Others claimed pirates were behind it. But then it happened again. A coalition of traders tried to map a shorter route through human space. They hired guards, sent a convoy of 30 ships, and promised to stay neutral. They crossed the line one quiet morning. The entire fleet vanished from scanners. 3 days later, the ships reappeared, drifting aimlessly across the border. All engines were dead. Every control panel had been melted from the inside. And the crew gone. Not dead, gone. The council sent rescue teams. They found food still warm in the galleys, lights still blinking, and half-written log entries ending mid-sentence. Whatever had happened, it had been instant. The council called an emergency meeting. Some demanded war, others demanded answers. But when they contacted Earth, there was no reply. Not a single human government official spoke up. It was as if the entire species had chosen to close its ears to the rest of the galaxy. Years passed, and the silence grew heavier. Traders stopped sailing near the border. Smugglers who tried to sneak in disappeared. Even the boldest explorers, the ones who once mapped black holes for sport, refused to approach. They called it the edge, and yet no one could forget that the humans were still inside. Every once in a while, signals would escape the line, short bursts of code, strange pulses of energy, or ghostly transmissions showing massive shapes moving in the dark. Scholars tried to study them, but nothing matched known physics. Some said humanity had found a way to bend space itself. Others claimed they had built living machines, ships that breathed and thought. But the truth was simple. Nobody knew. Still, what frightened the galaxy most wasn't what humans had built. It was what they had become. One event sealed the fear forever. A young alien diplomat from the Chiron species, brave and naive, decided to test the truth for himself. He convinced his government to let him send a single ship to deliver a message of peace to the humans. He believed the stories were exaggerated, that fear had twisted the truth. He crossed the border in full view of the galactic networks. Billions watched the live feed as his ship approached the invisible line. The crew was calm, their instruments stable. The last thing they transmitted was a simple sentence, "Crossing now." Then the screen turned black. For 10 long minutes there was nothing. No static, no sound, no error signal. Then the feed came back, showing the ship drifting lifelessly across the border. The diplomat was gone. Every other crew member was missing. Only one message appeared on the main display, written in human script. "Do not cross again." From that day, the Council stopped asking questions. Time turned fear into tradition. Entire generations grew up believing that human space was sacred ground. The galaxy built new trade routes that curved around it, adding light years to every journey just to avoid the border. It became part of every navigation course. Never approach human territory. No one could explain how this quiet species had earned such respect, or such terror. Some believed it was revenge for how the older civilizations once mocked them. Others thought humanity had evolved beyond understanding, perhaps merging with their machines or mastering energies that could erase matter itself. But a few thinkers, hidden deep within universities and archives, whispered a different idea. They said humans had not become monsters or gods. They had simply decided they'd had enough. Enough wars, enough interference, enough being watched and judged. They had built a wall around themselves, not to conquer but to be left alone. And when the galaxy refused to listen, humanity had taught them a single unforgettable lesson: respect. Even now, centuries later, the silence continues. Pilots who pass near the border often say they feel something, a deep vibration in the hull, as if the very space around them is warning them to turn back. Some claim to hear faint whispers through their calm, soft human voices saying, "You shouldn't be here." And yet no one ever sees a human ship. No patrols, no warnings, just that endless quiet. Maybe that's what makes it so powerful. Fear of the unknown is stronger than fear of any weapon. For the rest of the galaxy, the line is a boundary, but for humanity it is a promise, one they intend to keep forever. Because beyond that border lies something no one else understands. A place built not just of steel and technology, but of willpower, memory, and silence. The line is where the galaxy ends, and where humanity begins. At first, humanity's growth across the stars was met with applause. The Galactic Council, made up of hundreds of advanced civilizations, watched with cautious admiration as this young species spread faster than any before it. In less than 200 years, humans had gone from crawling out of their solar system to colonizing distant worlds. They built thriving colonies on frozen moons and scorching deserts, on planets no other species had dared to touch. The Council couldn't understand it. Most civilizations expanded slowly, waiting centuries between each new settlement. But humans? They moved like a wildfire through space, and they didn't seem to need anyone's permission. Soon, whispers began to circulate through the halls of the Council. Some called them reckless. Others said they were dangerous. The most cautious voices warned that humanity might become too powerful, too fast. And that's when the watching began. A coalition of alien powers formed what they called the Observation Pact. Their plan was simple: keep an eye on human expansion, track their movements, and make sure they weren't building weapons of mass destruction. It wasn't unusual. The Council had done the same for other species before. At first, the humans didn't seem to care. Their ships continued their routes, mining worlds, building cities, terraforming new planets. The observers found nothing unusual until one day one of their fleets crossed a region near the Sol sector. The humans had never claimed that space officially, but everyone knew it was near their core worlds. The fleet sent a polite signal requesting permission to pass through. No response came. After several hours, the commander decided to continue anyway. That was the last anyone ever heard from them. 3 weeks later, Pieces of those ships were found floating near the border. Not destroyed, just stripped clean. Every weapon, every engine, every system had been carefully removed. It was as if someone had taken the ships apart piece by piece and then returned the empty shells as a warning. No sign of battle, no burn marks, no trace of a struggle. The crew, thousands of experienced officers, had vanished without a single distress call. When the news reached the council, panic spread fast. Some demanded an investigation. Others said the humans had every right to defend their territory. But one thing was clear. Humanity had drawn a line and someone had crossed it. Still, the galaxy didn't understand. They thought it was just an isolated incident. Until it happened again. A few months later, a group of scientists from another race known for their love of exploration decided to send unmanned probes near human borders. Their goal was simple: gather readings, map gravitational fields, and study the strange energy signatures coming from inside human territory. The first probe made it halfway across before its signal turned to static. The second lasted 30 seconds longer. The third sent back a single blurry image before going dark. The image showed something enormous in the distance, a shape that looked like a ship, but far larger than anything known. That image became the most analyzed file in the galaxy. It showed no weapons, no markings, no engines. Just a dark, smooth structure that seemed to stretch endlessly through space. The scientists never sent another probe. As fear spread, some governments tried to open communication with Earth directly. They sent messages of peace, offers of trade, and even requests for cultural exchange. None were answered. At first, people thought humanity was ignoring them. But then something strange happened. For one brief moment, a message came through from the Sol system. It wasn't hostile. It was calm, measured, almost cold. Do not cross the line. That was it. Just 5 words. No introduction, no signature, no follow-up. The message repeated once, then vanished. Every attempt to reply failed. After that, the galaxy understood. Humanity didn't want to negotiate. They wanted silence. But not everyone believed the warnings. A few ambitious races, driven by greed or pride, decided to test the border themselves. One by one, they sent ships into human space, claiming they were simply exploring. Every time, the result was the same: disappearance. No debris, no transmissions, no survivors. The stories started spreading in taverns and trade ports. Smugglers whispered about ships that drifted near the border and returned empty. Pilots claimed they saw human ships moving through the dark, sleek, silent, with lightless hulls that swallowed stars. Some said those ships didn't use engines at all. They just appeared out of nowhere and vanished like ghosts. Soon, even the boldest captains stopped going near human space. The border became known by a new name: the Line of Silence. Centuries passed, but the fear didn't fade. In fact, it grew stronger. Children across the galaxy grew up hearing stories about the human line. Parents used it to scare them into behaving. Do your studies, or the humans will come for you. It became legend, myth, and warning all at once. Yet beneath the fear was something else: curiosity. Every civilization wanted to know the same thing. Why? Why had humans withdrawn from the galaxy? Why had they turned their borders into a wall no one dared to cross? What were they hiding behind? That silence? Eventually, a group of historians tried to piece together humanity's last known records before they went quiet. What they found only deepened the mystery. Before cutting contact, humans had shared limited trade with the outer colonies. The last transmissions from those colonies mentioned strange experiments, something about self-replicating energy cores and artificial consciousness. But the details were never made public. Then came the blackout. All communication from human space stopped at once. Even automated beacons went dark. Ships that tried to re-establish contact vanished. It was as if an invisible curtain had fallen over the entire region of space. The council debated sending a massive fleet to investigate, but no one wanted to take responsibility. The memory of the first lost fleets was still too fresh. So they waited, and waited. Humanity never spoke again. Over time, new species rose and fell. Empires came and went. The galaxy evolved, but the line remained the same. No one crossed it. Not out of law, but out of fear. Yet, in every era, there were always a few who questioned the truth. Some believed the humans were long gone, that their silence was proof of extinction. Others argued that they were still there, watching quietly from behind the border, waiting for the right moment to return. The only thing everyone agreed on was this: if humanity was still alive, they didn't want company. One night, a deep space cargo ship flying near the border reported something unusual. The crew picked up a weak signal, almost too faint to notice. It wasn't a distress call, just a repeating tone. 3 short pulses, then silence. When they tried to trace it, they realized it came from deep inside human space. They didn't investigate. No one ever does. The crew turned off their scanners, changed course, and logged the incident as unexplained. But everyone on that ship remembered the feeling. They said it was like being watched by something ancient, something vast, something awake. That was enough to remind the galaxy of an old truth: some lines are not meant to be crossed. In the centuries that followed, the story of the missing fleets became part of history lessons, old documentaries, even cautionary tales. Teachers would point to the empty patch of the star map and say, "That is human space. We do not go there." The students would ask why, and the teachers would just shake their heads, because no one who did ever came back. Over time, it stopped being a question and became a rule. Humanity's silence became part of the galaxy's balance. The stars beyond the line belonged to them, and everyone knew better than to ask for explanations. And perhaps that was the most frightening thing of all. Because silence, in a galaxy full of noise, is its own kind of power. Centuries passed, and the fear around human space only deepened. What had once been curiosity turned into a quiet, universal agreement. No one entered human territory. It wasn't written in any treaty, yet every ship captain, every trading company, and every government obeyed it. It was as if the stars themselves whispered, "Stay away." The center of it all was a region of space called the Sol System, the birthplace of humanity. To most of the galaxy, it had become a ghost zone. Long-range scanners showed strange energy readings, unnatural distortions, and shifting gravity wells that made no sense. It was said that even automated drones sent near Sol vanished without a trace. Still, the galaxy never stopped wondering what was happening behind that silent border. At first, the Galactic Council tried to monitor it from afar. They placed satellites just outside the boundary, scanning every wavelength of light, every pulse of radiation. But their equipment often failed for no clear reason. Some satellites went blind, their lenses fogging with static. Others drifted off course as if pushed by invisible hands. The Council spent years studying the readings, but nothing added up. The data would change daily. One day there were signs of cities and industrial heat. The next, nothing at all. Then came the strangest signal ever recorded. One of the probes detected a faint transmission from deep within the Sol system. The sound was faint and filled with distortion, but one word could be clearly heard, spoken in an unmistakably human voice. Home. That single word shook the entire council. It was not a threat, not a warning, just a reminder that someone or something still lived there. For a while, the galaxy hoped it was a sign that humanity would finally reappear. Scholars and scientists from dozens of species wrote theories about what might have happened to them. Some believed humans had turned inward, focusing on their own evolution. Others thought they had discovered something that made the rest of the galaxy irrelevant. Some truth about the universe that changed everything. But the silence never broke. No new signals came. No ships emerged. The humans had sealed themselves in their own world, and whatever they were doing in there, they didn't want witnesses. That's when the fear truly began. Merchants traveling near the border began reporting strange encounters. Some said their sensors picked up ghost signals that matched human ship designs, but when they turned to look, nothing was there. Others claimed to see flashes of light in the distance, like fleets moving through hyperspace without leaving energy trails. One pilot described it best. "It's like they're still out there, just under the surface of the dark, watching us." waiting. Even though no one had seen a human in generations, the stories of their power and unpredictability still spread like wildfire. It wasn't just their ships or their technology. It was their nature that frightened people. Humans had always been different. They had a kind of persistence the galaxy had never understood. Every other species had limits. They avoided impossible odds, accepted defeat, moved on. But humans didn't stop. When their worlds were destroyed, they rebuilt. When they lost wars, they returned stronger. When death faced them, they stared it down. That kind of will couldn't be erased by silence. The galaxy began to build its own myths around the Sol system. Some believed humans had ascended to a higher state of being, becoming energy or light. Others thought they had merged with their machines to create something beyond comprehension. A few whispered that the humans had destroyed themselves after discovering something too powerful to control. But none of those stories felt right. Because if humanity was gone, then who or what kept the border so perfectly guarded? There were no ships, no patrols, no warnings. Yet every time someone crossed that invisible line, they disappeared. No wreckage, no explosion, no sign of violence, just complete erasure. That was when the galaxy began to accept a strange truth. The silence of Sol was not a sign of weakness. It was power. A small team of scientists once tried to understand it by studying the way human systems behaved before they went silent. They examined old trade records, communications, and military data. What they discovered was both fascinating and terrifying. Before their disappearance, humans had been experimenting with what they called quantum synchronization fields, a form of energy that could manipulate gravity and matter at unimaginable scales. No one else in the galaxy had ever mastered such technology. If the humans had succeeded, they could have built defenses that stretched across entire star systems, walls of invisible energy capable of bending space and time itself. That might have explained why no one could cross their borders, but the real question wasn't how they did it. It was why. Why would an ambitious, social, and curious species suddenly choose silence? Why would they turn their backs on the galaxy they had once been so eager to explore? No one had the answer. Over the centuries, the galaxy stopped trying to explain it. The silence became part of reality, a natural law like gravity. You didn't question it, you just respected it. Every once in a while, though, someone would test it. Explorers, smugglers, and thrill-seekers, driven by pride or foolishness, would fly too close to the border. Sometimes they came back, but those who did were never the same. They described visions, strange shapes in the dark, whispers over their comms, and sudden power failures that defied all logic. One captain said his ship had been frozen in place for an hour, while the stars around him seemed to spin. Then, without warning, he was pushed back across the border by a force he couldn't see. When asked what he heard in that frozen moment, he simply said, "A voice told me to go home." After that, no one else tried. Generations later, the galaxy had grown comfortable with the arrangement. The humans were silent, but their influence was everywhere. Their old technology, still superior even after centuries, continued to circulate through black markets. Starship engineers still studied ancient human blueprints, trying to unlock their secrets. Every great power in the galaxy used something of human design, even if they didn't admit it. Their reactors, their engines, their weapons, all traced back to human innovation. It was as if humanity's fingerprints remained on every piece of progress. That irony wasn't lost on anyone. The species everyone feared most was also the one that had built the foundation for their civilization. Still, not everyone accepted the silence. On a distant moon near the border, a group of researchers set up an observatory to study the strange patterns of light that sometimes flickered inside human space. They spent decades collecting data, searching for meaning in the randomness. One night, after years of nothing, their sensors detected a faint pulse, a repeating pattern coming from the direction of Sol. It wasn't noise. It was structured like a heartbeat. They recorded it and amplified it. The sound was deep, rhythmic, and constant. Some said it felt alive. When the researchers presented their findings to the Galactic Council, the reaction was immediate panic. The data was confiscated, the observatory was shut down, and every record of the signal was erased. But the story leaked anyway. People began to whisper that the humans weren't silent. They were sleeping, waiting, watching, and the heartbeat was a reminder that they were still there. To this day, no one knows what lies within the Sol system. Maybe humanity evolved into something beyond understanding. Maybe they became the guardians of something ancient and dangerous. Or maybe they simply decided they didn't need anyone else. Whatever the reason, the galaxy learned a lesson it would never forget. Some mysteries are better left unsolved. The silence around Sol isn't empty. It's full. Full of unseen eyes, old memories, and quiet power. Every civilization knows it, even if they don't say it aloud. Because when their ships pass near the border and the stars flicker for just a moment, every pilot feels the same thing deep inside, a chill that says, they're still there. And that unspoken truth echoes through the galaxy like a quiet prayer. For hundreds of years, the silence around human space had remained untouched. The galaxy had accepted it as a rule of existence, like gravity or light. But peace built on fear never lasts forever. The new generation of the Vorex Dominion didn't believe in legends. They were a proud, warlike species who ruled dozens of systems through strength and intimidation. To them, the idea that a single species could keep the entire galaxy afraid without firing a shot was an insult. They didn't care about the stories of missing fleets or vanished probes. They saw the silence of human space as weakness. Their leaders wanted to test the myth. It began with a speech broadcast across their empire. The Vorex Chancellor stood before billions, his voice echoing through every city, every ship, every colony. He declared, "The galaxy has grown soft, ruled by fear and superstition. For too long we have bowed before a ghost, these so-called humans who hide behind their borders. But I say there is no ghost. There is only emptiness. And we will prove it." The crowd roared with approval. Across the Vorex systems, fleets prepared for launch. Their ships were massive, armored with neutron plating and powered by energy cores that could tear moons apart. The Chancellor named the operation Dawn Strike. Their mission: enter human territory, record everything they saw, and broadcast proof that the humans were gone. It was supposed to be a simple show of strength. It became something no one would ever forget. The fleet launched with great ceremony, 200 warships glowing with blue light as they entered hyperspace. Their signal beacons blazed across the galactic networks, watched by billions of spectators. The Council tried to stop them, sending message after message begging them to turn back. But the Vorex Dominion didn't listen. As they approached the border of human space, the fleet commander opened a live channel to the galaxy. "We will cross the line," he said proudly. "And when we return, you will see that the humans are nothing but a story to scare children." Those were his last known words. Every sensor in the galaxy was tuned to the border that day. Observatories, military outposts, and private ships all watched as the Vorex fleet reached the invisible edge of human territory. At first, nothing happened. The fleet continued forward, their ships arranged in perfect formation. They sent back clear images, empty stars, drifting asteroids, no signs of life. The commander laughed over the transmission. "See, no ghosts, just empty space." Then the feed began to flicker. The first signs were small, static crawling across the image, sudden drops in communication. Engineers on nearby monitoring stations reported strange interference, as if the air itself had become heavy. The commander's voice cut in again, this time quieter. "We are detecting energy fluctuations. Unusual gravitational shifts ahead." The last image anyone saw was of the fleet slowing down, their engines glowing bright as they approached what appeared to be a dark wall in space, a region where light itself seemed to bend. Then, silence. For 3 long days, the galaxy heard nothing. Every attempt to reach the fleet failed. Even distress frequencies bounced back as static. It was as if the entire fleet had fallen off the edge of reality. On the 4th day, something appeared. Sensors picked up hundreds of drifting objects crossing back over the border. At first, people thought it was debris, but when rescue drones arrived, they saw the truth. It was the Vorex fleet, perfectly intact. Not one ship showed signs of battle. Their hulls were untouched. Their engines were still running, but every system inside was dead. Life support was active, yet not a single crew member was found. Thousands of soldiers had vanished. The ships were hollow, floating monuments to silence. The Council sent emergency recovery teams to investigate. They entered one of the Vorex battleships cautiously. The halls were clean, the air breathable, light still glowing faintly. Half-eaten meals sat on tables. Logbooks ended mid-sentence. It was as if everyone had simply disappeared in an instant. Then they found the message. In the main command center, carved into the metal of the captain's console, were 5 words written in human script. Leave. Do not return again. That was all. No voice, no threat, no name. Just a warning. When the teams tried to remove the ships for study, they found something even stranger. Every system that was reactivated instantly shut down again, as if rejecting foreign hands. After several attempts, the ships began to corrode, metal rusting and crumbling in seconds. Within hours, the entire fleet disintegrated into dust, leaving nothing behind. The galaxy watched in horror. The incident changed everything. For centuries, the silence of human space had been treated as legend, something mysterious, maybe exaggerated. But now there was proof. The Vorex fleet had been destroyed without a single weapon being fired. The message spread fast. Governments that had once mocked the humans began to quietly adjust their star maps, expanding the no-entry zone even further. Traders rerouted their routes. Scientists deleted their research projects involving human borders. The Galactic Council issued a new declaration. No vessel shall cross into the Sol exclusion zone. Violation will be considered a galactic crime. But the rule wasn't needed. The fear alone was enough. The Vorex Dominion never recovered from their humiliation. Their chancellor disappeared soon after, and their empire began to crumble. Some said he had been taken by the same unseen force that swallowed his fleet. Others whispered that his own people had turned against him out of shame. Meanwhile, the humans remained silent. Not a single signal came from their territory. Not a threat, not a claim, not even acknowledgement. It was as if nothing had happened. And that silence was the most chilling response of all. Across the galaxy, people tried to make sense of it. How could an entire fleet vanish without being destroyed? What kind of power could do that? Some theorized that humanity had built weapons beyond comprehension, machines that could manipulate gravity and matter at will. Others believed the humans had transcended physical form, existing as pure energy that could erase intruders without effort. But a few thinkers had a simpler explanation. They said humanity didn't need weapons anymore. The line itself was their defense, a living barrier powered by something far greater than technology. The will to be left alone. Over time, the Vorex incident became a legend told in every school and academy. It was used as a lesson for every young commander. Power is not always loud. Sometimes it is silent. The story spread through space stations, mining colonies, and deep space taverns. Pilots would sit around telling tales of the day the Vorex disappeared, warning newcomers never to go near human borders. And whenever someone asked why the humans never responded, the answer was always the same: they don't need to. Years later, long after the incident, a lone explorer claimed to have found something drifting at the edge of the human border. A single black box, small and ancient, marked with human symbols. He didn't open it. He sent one short message to the council instead. "It's not empty." Then he vanished too. After that, no one ever doubted again. The Sol exclusion zone remained untouched. The humans were never seen, but their presence was everywhere. In the quiet hum of reactors, in the old maps that marked their domain, in the stories whispered by travelers who swore they saw shadows moving in the dark. The galaxy finally learned its lesson. It wasn't wise to disturb those who wanted peace. Because sometimes, silence isn't the absence of sound. It's a warning spoken in a language the rest of the universe has yet to understand. And so, for centuries more, no one dared to cross the line again. But deep inside human space, somewhere in the endless dark, something still moved. Calm, patient, and watching, because humanity didn't vanish. They simply chose not to speak. For a long time after the Vorex incident, the galaxy lived in uneasy peace. Everyone knew where human space began, but no one truly knew where it ended. Maps showed a wide dark zone marked only with a single warning: restricted territory, human domain. Most travelers never went near it. Those who did returned quiet and pale, refusing to speak of what they'd seen. Some said they'd heard whispers through the radio. Others swore their instruments had shown things that couldn't exist. Yet none of them had proof. It was as if the universe itself was helping humanity keep its secrets. But time has a strange way of dulling fear. As decades passed, The younger species began to question the old stories. They hadn't seen the Vorax fleet vanish with their own eyes. To them, it was history, something exaggerated to keep people obedient. That was when rumors started spreading again. Small ones at first. A merchant claiming he'd seen lights moving at the border. A prospector saying he'd picked up strange energy readings from deep inside the zone. At first no one cared, but then, one by one, more sightings followed. The galaxy began to whisper once more. On the trade station of Epsilon 12, a group of pilots gathered around a holographic map. A quiet man placed a small black cube on the table. "I found this," he said, drifting at the edge of the line. The cube was covered in symbols that no one could read, but when he activated it, the room filled with a faint blue image, a human ship, massive and glowing with pale light, drifting silently through the void. It wasn't like any ship the galaxy had ever seen. No engines, no visible weapons, just a smooth hull that looked alive. Then, before anyone could analyze it, the cube cracked and turned to dust. The man looked around and said softly, "They're still out there." That single sentence spread faster than any transmission. Within weeks, hundreds of people were searching for signs of human presence. Explorers, scavengers, even scientists, all drawn by curiosity and greed. They wanted to see the ghost ships, maybe even make contact. What none of them understood was that contact was never going to happen by accident. Humanity didn't show itself unless it wanted to. In the far sector of Theta 9, a mining crew stumbled upon something buried deep under an asteroid's surface. It wasn't rock or metal, but a structure, smooth, geometric, and clearly artificial. When they sent a signal to claim the find, the message was cut off mid-transmission. When a rescue ship arrived a week later, the miners were gone. Their equipment remained untouched, lights still running, drills still humming. Only one thing was different. Carved into the wall of the cavern were the same 5 words found long ago on the Vorax ships. "Leave. Do not return again." That was enough to remind the galaxy that humans hadn't disappeared. They were still there, still watching. They simply stayed quiet until someone crossed a line. Meanwhile, within the Galactic Council, a new problem began to grow. The silence of human space was creating political tension. Some species believed humanity had abandoned the galaxy entirely, leaving behind powerful relics that others had the right to explore. Others argued that humanity's power was still active, and any interference could lead to disaster. A heated debate erupted, and then, without warning, every council system experienced the same strange event. For exactly 60 seconds, all communication networks shut down. Every screen turned black, and on each one, a single message appeared written in the same quiet human font. "We are not gone. Stay beyond the line." Then everything returned to normal. No one could trace the signal. It had come from everywhere and nowhere at once. That was all it took to end the debate. But what the galaxy didn't know was that humanity had changed. They hadn't gone silent out of fear. They had evolved. Deep within their territory, the human race had grown beyond the limits the rest of the galaxy could imagine. They no longer relied on fleets of steel or armies of soldiers. Their technology had merged with thought itself. Cities floated within spheres of light. Energy fields shaped landscapes like art. Travel between stars had become instant, powered not by engines but by human will combined with quantum architecture. They watched the galaxy from afar, not as rulers or conquerors but as guardians, silent observers ensuring that chaos didn't spill into their realm again. They remembered the wars, the betrayal, the arrogance of other species who once called them primitive. And they remembered what it felt like to lose billions before they found peace. That's why they chose silence, not out of pride but out of wisdom. One quiet night in a distant human outpost, an elder spoke to a group of young cadets. "You will hear stories about how the galaxy fears us," he said. "But remember this, fear is not what we want. We earned our peace the hard way, so if they keep their distance, let them. Our purpose now is not to dominate but to endure." The cadets listened in silence. They had grown up hearing tales of the old wars, the fall of the Alliance, the endless struggle for survival. But to them, humanity's strength wasn't in weapons anymore. It was in patience, yet even patience has limits. Beyond the borders, a growing alliance of smaller species began forming a secret coalition. They called themselves the Explorers' Pact. Their goal was simple: to uncover what lay within human space, no matter the risk. They built new stealth ships with cloaking drives and silent engines, hoping to slip past whatever invisible barrier protected the humans. When their first ship crossed the border, it didn't vanish like the Vorex fleet. Instead, it simply turned around. Every pilot on board swore that they hadn't touched the controls. Their ship had been gently redirected, not pushed, not pulled, just guided back to their original position. When they tried again, the same thing happened. After the third attempt, their navigation computers displayed a new message. Curiosity is good. Intrusion is not. The words were polite, calm, almost friendly. That made it even more unsettling. From that moment, the galaxy began to realize that humanity wasn't angry or vengeful. They were simply done playing games. They had built something sacred within their borders, something they didn't want disturbed, and so the silence continued. But deep down, everyone knew it couldn't last forever. The universe has a way of testing every rule. It started small. An unmanned probe sent by a distant species entered human territory by mistake. It was recovered 3 hours later, perfectly intact, but with all its data wiped clean except for a single image. It showed a planet, blue oceans, green land, and white clouds swirling in calm motion. Earth. But above the planet hung thousands of silent shapes in orbit, ships larger than mountains, glimmering faintly in the sunlight. At the bottom of the image was a timestamp, written in human format. The year was far in the future. That one picture reignited old fears. The galaxy didn't sleep for weeks after that. Every government met in secret. Every species began preparing defenses just in case. But nothing came. No human fleets appeared, no warnings followed. It became clear once again humanity wasn't preparing for war. They were preparing for something else. Some said they were waiting for the right time to return. Others believed they were building a civilization beyond what the universe could understand. One ancient historian put it best. Perhaps they are not our enemies or our saviors. Perhaps they are simply finished with us. And yet, far beyond the edge of known space, there were whispers. Travelers spoke of strange stations appearing near dying stars, always unmarked, always silent. Some who approached claimed to see human figures inside. Tall, calm, watching. Whenever someone tried to communicate, the stations would vanish, leaving behind only a faint echo in the scanners. A pattern began to form. Every time a major galactic conflict was about to begin, one of those stations would appear nearby, and every time the conflict mysteriously stopped before it started. Fleets withdrew. Leaders changed their minds. No one ever connected it publicly, but everyone knew the truth. Humanity was still protecting the galaxy, just from the shadows. Generations passed, and the fear became something else. Respect. Children learned not to fear the silence, but to honor it. The line became a boundary between chaos and order, a reminder of what happens when arrogance meets wisdom. For humanity, it was simply life. They no longer cared about being worshipped or feared. Their focus was on preserving balance, ensuring that younger civilizations didn't destroy themselves like the old ones once tried to destroy Earth. And in their quiet cities of light, among the stars no one dared to enter, humans looked outward, not with anger, but with hope, because they knew the day would come when the galaxy would need them again, and when that day arrived they would answer, not with threats, not with war, but with the same quiet power that had always defined them, the kind that didn't need to shout to be heard. The galaxy had gone quiet again. Centuries had passed since the last sighting of a human ship. Trade routes flowed peacefully. New civilizations rose and old ones faded into memory. Yet in the hearts of every race, and from the smallest to the oldest, there remained one unspoken truth. The line still stood. No one crossed it. No one questioned it. Even the boldest explorers, those who claimed they feared nothing, turned their ships away the moment they saw the silent shimmer of space that marked the edge of human territory. But peace has a fragile nature. It happened on an ordinary day. No wars, no warnings. Just a sound. A deep hum that echoed across the entire galactic network. Every device flickered, every communication line went silent, every navigation system froze. Then, without warning, a signal appeared. It wasn't a broadcast. It wasn't even a message. It was music, soft, steady, and ancient. a tune made of gentle human voices, a melody known on Earth thousands of years ago. Across the galaxy, no one spoke as the sound filled every ship, every home, every planet. The song carried warmth, sadness, and something else. Something that made even the hardest soldiers close their eyes. When it ended, a single line of text appeared across the sky in every language known to the galaxy. The line remains, but the Watchers will speak once more, and then, silence. Within hours, the galaxy erupted into chaos. Governments held emergency meetings. Scientists tried to trace the signal but found it had come from everywhere at once. Religious groups declared it a sign from the heavens. Traders, smugglers, and historians all repeated the same words. The Watchers will speak. Everyone knew who the Watchers were. It was the name given to the humans long ago, but no one knew what they meant by speak. On the outer edge of the Orion Arm, a mining station picked up strange readings. A massive object was approaching, silent, slow, and steady. At first they thought it was an asteroid. Then their scanners revealed it wasn't stone or metal but something else entirely. It was a structure, thousands of kilometers long, glowing softly with shifting lights. It moved like it was alive. When the miners realized it was heading toward the galactic center, toward the home of the Council, they sent warnings, distress calls, anything they could. But the object never changed course, never responded. By the time it reached the nearest observation post, hundreds of ships were following it at a safe distance. Every camera in the galaxy turned toward the slow glowing giant as it passed silently through space. No one dared attack. No one dared hail. They all remembered the line. As it neared the galactic center, something incredible happened. The structure stopped. Its lights dimmed, and for a moment it was just there, motionless, vast, and beautiful. Then a light shot out from its core, projecting a massive image across the sky above every inhabited world. It was a human face, calm, gentle, and expressionless. The being spoke, not through words, but directly into every mind. The voice was clear, warm, and undeniably human. "You have grown," it said. "You have learned, and you have forgotten." The message rippled through every being's thoughts. People froze in their homes, unable to look away. The voice continued. "When we drew the line, it was not to divide. It was to protect. We watched as you built cities, forged peace, and repeated the same mistakes that once nearly destroyed us. But now the balance has shifted. The stars themselves are changing." The image shifted to show a distant cluster of galaxies, bright lights collapsing into darkness. "There is a storm coming," the voice said softly, "one that will not stop at your borders or ours. It will consume everything that breathes, everything that dreams." Then the light faded. For the first time in thousands of years, the galaxy heard a human message, and it wasn't a warning to stay away. It was a warning to prepare. The council met immediately. Every seat was filled, leaders, admirals, scholars, even priests. For the first time, no one argued. No one debated. The entire chamber was silent, waiting for the humans to speak again, but they didn't. Days passed, then weeks. The massive human structure still hovered near the galactic center, silent as a mountain. It didn't threaten anyone, didn't move. It simply waited. Eventually, the council sent a single ship, unarmed, unmarked, carrying nothing but a message of peace. The crew approached slowly, broadcasting open channels in every frequency. When they reached within one light minute of the human construct, their ship stopped on its own. The engines went dead, but the crew could still breathe, still move. A voice echoed inside the cabin, the same calm tone from before. "You seek answers," it said. "Then listen." The humans explained what they had discovered. Beyond the edges of the known universe, something vast was awakening. An ancient force left behind from before the birth of galaxies. It wasn't alive in the way life was known, but it consumed energy, light, and gravity. Humanity had seen it coming for centuries. They had prepared, building massive constructs and hidden networks to protect not just themselves but the entire galaxy. "We do not ask for your loyalty," the voice said. "We ask for your understanding. The storm will reach your worlds, and when it does, we will not fight for power. We will fight for all life." Then the transmission ended. Word spread faster than ever before. Every race, every nation, every leader realized that the humans had never isolated themselves out of pride or anger. They had been watching because they knew what was coming. Their silence wasn't to create fear, it was to give them time. The galaxy began to change. Old rivalries were set aside. Fleets that once faced each other in battle now trained side by side. The Council declared a unified command, something that had never happened before in recorded history. And at the heart of it all, the humans remained silent once again, not because they didn't care, but because they were already preparing. Years later, as the skies grew darker and strange ripples began to bend the stars, the first wave of the storm arrived. Space itself trembled, planets shook, stars dimmed, energy drained from entire systems as if something was feeding on them. The Allied fleets fought to hold the line, but their weapons barely slowed the advancing void. Then, when hope began to fade, the line lit up. It stretched across the galaxy like a ring of fire, white, blinding, and alive. From within it emerged thousands of human ships, massive, graceful, and silent. They moved with perfect coordination, forming a barrier between the storm and the living worlds. Without a single transmission, they began to act. Energy waves rippled from their hulls, pushing back the darkness. Beams of light cut through the black, stabilizing collapsing stars. Every species in the galaxy watched in awe as humanity, after centuries of silence, finally returned, not to conquer, not to punish, but to protect. When the storm finally broke and the skies cleared, half the galaxy was gone, but the living worlds were safe. The human ships drifted quietly, forming a new border around what remained. A single message appeared across the networks. The line remains. But this time you stand beside it. And then, as always, the humans disappeared again, their ships fading into light, their cities hidden once more. But things were different now. The galaxy no longer feared the border. Instead, they honored it. They understood that humanity wasn't a threat. They were the quiet guardians of the galaxy, the ones who had seen beyond time and chosen silence over domination. And somewhere, deep within that silent territory, humanity watched once more, patient, eternal, and ready, because they knew peace would never last forever. But as long as humans existed, the line would stand, not as a warning, but as a promise.